All right, let's journey back in time, shall we? Today, we're diving into one of history's most important connections, the legendary Silk Road. So, when I say Silk Road, what's the first thing you picture? I'm guessing it's probably a single dusty path, right? Winding through some epic desert with these long caravans of camels piled high with shimmering silk. It's a great image, totally iconic. But what if I told you that's not really the whole story?
Yeah. In fact, the two things most people think they know about it are, well, they're the biggest myths. First, it wasn't one road. And second, it wasn't just about silk, not by a long shot. So let's get into it and bust some of those myths.
Okay, so the best way to wrap your head around this isn't to think of it as a highway. Think of it more like the world's first internet. Seriously, it was this huge, sprawling network that connected civilizations that were worlds apart. And just like the internet, it was for information, for culture, for ideas, all flowing on a scale that was just unheard of back then. And when I say this scale was huge, I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing. We're talking about a shifting, changing web of routes. Not just one road, a web that stretched over 4,000 miles. It would change based on who was in power or even what season it was. It connected the absolute superpowers of the day, China, India, Persia, Rome. And get this, it was active for over 1,500 years. That's an incredibly long time for this living bridge to exist. So you have to wonder, how does something this massive even get started? Well, it didn't just pop into existence. It wasn't some grand construction project. It grew, organically, bit by bit. The whole thing was driven by a mix of human curiosity, the ambitions of empires, and of course, the desire to trade. You can actually point to a few key moments that really got the ball rolling. A big one was way back in 138 BCE. A Chinese diplomat, a guy named Zhang Qian, went on a mission to the West, and that basically kickstarted the official exchange. Then, fast forward a couple centuries and you've got the Roman Empire, which became absolutely obsessed with Chinese silk. Their demand for it poured fuel on the fire. But the real peak, the golden age of the Silk Road, that was during China's Tang dynasty in the 7th century. Everything was stable, things were prosperous, and the routes were safer and busier than they had ever been before. And all that activity, all that vibrancy, it led to this incredible exchange. Now, sure, there were a ton of physical goods moving back and forth, but that's not the real story. The stuff that truly changed the world was what was hitching a ride with those goods. Just look at what was moving. This was a true two-way street. From east to west, you had these game-changing technologies. We're talking silk, of course, but also gunpowder and paper, stuff that would literally reshape societies. And coming back the other way, from west to east, you had things like beautiful Roman glassware, gold and silver, and even stuff that seems common to us now, like grapes for making wine, and these amazing, powerful horses from Central Asia that completely changed how Chinese armies fought. But like I said, the physical items were only half of it. There's a great way to put it. The most valuable cargo was invisible. Because the things that had the biggest impact of all, well, you couldn't pack them in a box. You couldn't load them onto a camel. Think about it. Entire religions, like Buddhism, traveled along these routes from India and completely transformed East Asia. That Chinese invention, paper, it made its way west, and honestly, it's hard to imagine how knowledge would have spread in Europe without it. Even the food we eat, the carrot made its way from Central Asia to European dinner tables. But, and this is a big but, with all that connection came a really dark side. Because the same network that carried ideas and culture also carried disease. The Black Death traveled west along these exact same routes, and the consequences were absolutely catastrophic. So for more than 1,000 years, this massive land network was the absolute backbone of how the world connected and traded. But as we know, nothing lasts forever. The world was changing, and a new wave of technology was on the horizon, ready to make the old ways, well, obsolete. And really, the reason for the big shift comes down to simple economics. Just think about it. Sending stuff overland by caravan was super expensive and incredibly slow. I mean, a single journey could take years. But then you have these new sea routes. Suddenly, you can use huge ships that are way cheaper to operate, way faster, we're talking months instead of years, and they can carry so much more stuff. It was a total game changer, a logistical revolution. And that revolution kicked off what we now call the Age of Discovery. European powers started pouring money into building better ships and sailing technology. Why? Because they wanted to cut out the middleman, bypass those old land routes, and get direct access to all the wealth of the East. The age of the camel was officially ending, and the age of the sailing ship was beginning.
But here's the fascinating thing. Even after the caravan stopped and the routes grew quiet, the impact of the Silk Road, that never went away. Not at all. In fact, its echoes are all around us, right here, right now, woven into the fabric of our modern world.
Its real legacy isn't something dusty in a history book. It's the very idea of our interconnected world. It was the first grand experiment that proved a timeless truth. When different cultures connect, they don't just swap stuff. They swap ideas. They create new things together. They change each other, fundamentally and forever.
So if there's one crucial point to take away from all this, it's this. Connection is the engine of human progress. For better, and sometimes for worse, it's what drives us forward. It speeds up innovation. It builds entirely new worlds. And the Silk Road? It was the first massive, undeniable proof of that truth.
And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. Today, we live in an age of instant, global, digital connection. It's like a brand new Silk Road made of data and ideas. It's already changed our world in ways those ancient merchants could never, ever have dreamed of. But as we just saw with the Silk Road, every powerful connection has its bright spots and its dark shadows. So it makes you wonder, what's next for us? What are the unforeseen consequences and the incredible new ideas that our modern global network is going to create?
If you loved this video you just watched, please consider to like, share, and subscribe.